Okay, now let's take a look at fair information practices. What does fair information practices mean, right? So this is basically information that is being collected from us, right? Practices, let's break the word fair, right? Is it fair? Fairly being used? Information that is collected from users, consumers, citizens, practices, for practices that is being done, how that information is being used. That's what we're going to look at. The next, let's take part of this, just keep a watch on some of these topics. These are extremely important topics in terms of privacy, important concepts also in terms of actually privacy. So this is OECD Guidelines. This is the European organization which actually looks at setting up these kind of policies, public policy discussions, guidelines, everything. So they came up with this list of guidelines which says, I'll go through each one of them very carefully, each one of them, but for now quickly it is collection limitation, data quality, purpose specification, use limitations, security safeguards, openness, individual participation, and accountability. Right, so those are the 8 pieces of guidelines that they created. As such, this image is there, so we'll actually go to the OECD guidelines itself. I'll actually walk you through the OECD guidelines document itself and show you the parts where they've defined these and how these plays a role in the discussion of privacy that we're having. You'll be able to relate to almost all of them, because I think as users, as consumers of different tools, we actually see them all over us. One discussion about WhatsApp privacy also, right? WhatsApp privacy policies change and what happened will connect to you easily when we look at the topics, right? So here are the definitions of the guidelines, right? First, collection limitation principle. It reads as, there should be limits to the collection of personal data, and any such data should be obtained by lawful and fair means, and where appropriate with the knowledge or consent of the data subject. Data subject is us as the users. Right? Collection limitation basically means that the information that is collected, right, should be limited to the collection of personal data. The information that is needed only should be collected, right? If Amazon has to send the book to your home, the book that you buy, they can't be asking you for a blood group, right? They can't be asking you for, let's take your Aadhaar number, right? So it's not necessary. They just need credit card for taking the money, address to send the book, right? So just limit the collection of information that is necessary for doing the practice. Keep the word fair information practice also in mind when we are going through all these guidelines. Data quality principle. Personal data should be relevant to the purposes for which they are to be used, and to the extent necessary for those purposes should be accurate, complete, and kept up to date. Quality of the information should be there, right? Facebook is collecting information about me. Information that they collect should be kept updated, kept what I have given to them. Let's take, I gave them birth, date of birth is A, B, and C, which is month, day, and year. They should not change it, right? It should be kept as I have given. The quality of the information that users are sharing should be kept intact. Purpose specification principle. The purposes for which personal data are collected should be specified, not later than at the time of data collection, and the subsequent use limited to the fulfillment of those purposes or such others as are not incompatible with those purposes and as are specified on each occasions of change of purpose. It's a very legal term, legal way of writing, but the simple way is that, look, I collect, let's take this a form that you fill to attend let's take open to all sessions for the students in this class. I put a form, I send you the Zoom link for joining to that call for discussion of the topic. For example, I asked you to watch the social dilemma, right? If people have watched it, come, let's discuss it. That's a form. I get your email address in that. I send you the Zoom link for joining the call. That call gets done. Next, I actually have a, so to say, seminar that's going on privacy. Can I actually send it to you in that email address? Right? I collected for the purpose of getting you on the call for open discussion about the topic in the class. Can I actually give that information, use that information for sending you something else? That's the guideline. It should not be done is what the guideline or the principle is suggesting. Right? Amazon is taking your cell number for giving it to the third party to deliver the product to you and make sure that you get the product. It should not be the case that the product Amazon uses that cell number to call you and sell some new products of Amazon. Right? Use limitation. Personal data should not be disclosed, made available, or otherwise used for purposes other than those specified in accordance with the paragraph 9, except it's basically arguing that purpose specification should be done, which is to give the purpose specification here talks about specifying the purpose for which it is collected when the information is collected, right? I'm getting the cell number, that time it should be said that, oh, this information is collected because we want to make sure that the third party will have the cell number so that the book gets delivered properly. With the consent of the subject. So when it has to be used for something else, right, the consent of the user should be taken. If you remember, I think earlier I mentioned about medical, the hospital sharing the data when I was mentioning about anonymity, information that the hospital is sharing with the third party analytics company to get some analysis done, right? So the limitation of the use should be specified earlier, right? The hospital sharing that information with third party is necessary, but if the hospital is sharing that information further, then the user has to be consented into it, right? I think during that time I also explained about a first physician and the secondary physician, primary physician and secondary physician. Secondary physician getting access to your data, getting access to your medical records, the consent from the user has to be there. That's what this is saying, with the consent of the data subject, right? Or by the authority of law. Security safeguards principle. Personal data should be protected by reasonable security guards. This is a typical security measure, which is data should be encrypted, data should be kept in a place which is not accessible to many people, blah, 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 blah. That's what this says. Security guards against such risk as loss or unauthorized access, destructions, use, modifications, or disclosure of the data. Openness principle. There should be a general policy of openness about developments, practices, and policies with respect to the personal data, means should be readily available of establishing the existence and nature of the personal data and the main purposes of their use, as well as their identity and usual residence of the data. So I'm reading it because this is very technical in terms of the definitions. I'm just reading it. Otherwise, openness principle is allowed. So the company should be open about the developments, practices, and be able to actually share it with the users of the data also. Individual participation should have the right to obtain data as from a data controller or otherwise, confirmation of whether or not the data controller has data relating to them. So this is again going back to the policy that we talked about, right? Can you get access to your data from Facebook, right? Individual participation. You should be allowed to have access to that information of yours. To be given reasons if a request made. So if you make a request to Facebook and Facebook is denying to give you the data, there should be some explanation for it. Accountability is a data controller should be accountable for complying with measures which give effect to the principle stated above. So it's basically arguing that if there is any problem with the, let's take the breach happens because of in LinkedIn, right? You may have seen that, oh, LinkedIn's data got stolen. Facebook's user name and passwords got stolen, right? All of this, if it happens, what is the accountability of the company? And that should be stated prior. Right? Should there be some legal action against them? Should they actually go tell all the customers? Right? Should they send out a notification to all Facebook users saying that, look, your username and password may be actually compromised? Those are the things that one should take care of. Those are the principles, right? Again, this is a pretty long document of 154 pages. I'm not expecting you to read, and I don't think so it is necessary to read, but please go and look at these principles at least more in detail as you get some time. So that's OECD guidelines. Next, we look at FTC, right? FTC stands for Federal Trade Commission. This is in the US now. They looked at the OECD guidelines and then said that, look, we can actually change it a little bit and come up with a simpler set of guidelines. They made it notice and disclosure, consent, choice and consent, data security, data quality and access, recourse and remedies, which kind of overlaps with many of the things that are there in the OECD, but also changes a little bit. So let's see what they are and how they are similar and how they are different, right? Again, let's go to the document itself, FTC Guidelines. That's the FTC Guidelines document. Right, that's the FTC Guidelines document, which was published in 1998. And I'll take you to the specific page where it's only the definition of what we are looking for. Right? Fair information practice principles generally. So it talks about the principles that I've already said in the slide. What is the definition of notice and awareness, right? That's the first guideline from FTC, which says the most fundamental principle is notice. Consumers should be given notice of an entity's information practice before any personal information is collected. Without notice, a consumer cannot make an informed. See, the words that I've said before are coming back. Right, I said earlier about informed decision as to whether and to what extent to disclose personal information. Moreover, three of the other principles disclosed below, choice, consent, access, participation, and enforcement redress, are only meaningful when the consumer notice is right? Unless the user knows the privacy policy, unless the user is informed about the practices of the organization, none of the policies actually are going to make any sense, right? That's the argument. Right, so this is saying that while the scope and the content of notice will depend on the entity's substantive information practices, notice of some or all of the following have been recognized as essential, which is identification of the entity collecting the data, identification of the users to which, so this is connecting to the OECD also, right? How the information is collected, what information is collected, who will have access to that information, all that. Right, that's the bigger list. I'll let you to go through if you are interested in. In the internet context, notice can be accomplished easily by posting an information practice disclosure, describing an entity's information practices on a company's website. To be effective, such a disclosure should be clear and conspicuous, right? So, but the question mark here is that are they is the question, right? So it's going to be, we will look at it later in the course also. Are these privacy policies legible? Is it possible to read? If I let you to read the privacy policy, how much will you understand all that? But the point here is that in terms of internet, it is easy to give the first, it is easy to actually deploy the first principle, which is notice and awareness, because we just have to put it on the privacy policy. The second principle is choice or consent. At its simplest, choice means giving consumers options as to how any personal information collected from them may be used. Right. So it's basically saying that choice, which is also an opt-in and opt-out idea, will come in here. Traditionally, two types of choices or consent regimes have been considered, which is opt-in or opt-out. Which is to say that, look, for getting you onto a mailing list, should I just add you to a mailing list? And then say that, look, go and opt out? Or should I say, I'm going to add you in the mailing list, or if you're interested in the mailing list, please come and sign up here. Two different approaches. Fundamentally, they're different. Generally, in terms of privacy-aware solutions, you want to keep it as an opt-in solution, right? You want to put it into the system that users will sign up for being part of. Right? Highlighted part, I will let you to take a look at it if you're interested. In online environment, choice easily can be exercised by simply clicking a box. So if you're a Slack user, Slack would actually tell you there's a radio button there, which will tell you to send you notifications, send you updates on the products, right? So this is a choice that you can make by checking that box or not checking that box. That's what it's saying. In the online environment, choice easily can be exercised by simply clicking a box on the computer screen that indicates a user's decision. Right? Whether you want to sign up for that mailing list or not is just in your hands, in the decision that you're making. The third one, access participation. Access is the third core principle. It refers to an individual's ability both to access data about him or herself, that is to view the data in entities' files, and to contest that data accuracy. This again going back to OECD's policy also, whether you will be able to get access to the information that you shared, and if there is something wrong, my date of birth changed, right? Can you actually contest with the organization saying that what they did is wrong? Integrity and security is very similar to the security safeguard policy of OECD, which is to give protection to the data. encryption, storage, physical security. Here it also talks about both managerial and technical measures, right? Both at the level of technical solutions and the system level solution should be provided for making sure that the data is protected. Enforcement and redress. Among the alternative enforcement, so this basically is about the approaches that are provided for if something goes wrong, which is the accountability that we saw in OECD. If something goes wrong, who should help? Who should you go to? What provisions do we have? What should the company do about it? All of that is written in this enforcement remedies. Enforcement redress. Self-regulation, so there are multiple methods. So self-regulation is, companies all put together say that, this is what we will follow, these are the policies. There is private remedies, which is again set of guidelines that companies come up with, which is that they would follow. Third one is, of course, the government enforcement, saying, okay, government is putting a rule saying you cannot do, you need to have a privacy policy, and the privacy policy should be definitely followed, otherwise you will have legal ramifications. Right. Again, this is a longer document. If interested, please go take a look at it. But otherwise, that's what is OECD principles and FTC guidelines, which allows users to understand how their information is being used for practices that the companies have. Okay, that's the end of week 1. So the week 1, generally, what did we look at? We looked at what the definition of privacy is. We'll come back to some of this again in different forms, but not looking at so theoretically as we did today, as we did in this week, right? So we saw what privacy is, what are the privacy attitudes and awareness, privacy indices, states of privacy, then FTC principles, FTC guidelines, OECD guidelines, all of that. Okay, that's week 1. Look forward to having you in week 2 class. Thank you.